Okay, folks, hello. And today I want to introduce a very special guest. We have Jens Nielsen. Jens is a personal friend of mine, real estate background. I'll go a little bit into his background, but just want to welcome him on first and foremost. He was very courteous to come on when he found out that we were doing more entrepreneurial deep dives and learning about different entrepreneurs. So this is the latest iteration. And Jens, I'm sure, is going to drop some gems on us today, but a little bit about his background. He is the founder and managing member of Open Doors Capital. He oversees the company's acquisitions, business development, and asset management. He also directs their overall investment strategy and brings over 25 years in computer system management and organizational leadership to the company. In partnership with other private real estate investment firms, they have purchased or partnered in over 2,700 apartment units since 2016, worth over $250 million. Super impressive background there. You also, as I understand it, have gotten into the business and high performance background. Is that the case?
Yeah, it is. Hey, Mark, good to see you today. Yeah, as you said, a long IT W-2 career that I retired from roughly 3-4 years ago, and combine that with both real estate investing and then also high performance coaching and business consulting and so forth. Like, I think those two really go well together, and that has been a great way for me to kind of build my own business and become that entrepreneur later in life. As you can say, I am past 50, so it took a little while to get into it, but here I am.
Yeah, no, I've talked to a lot of investors that are in their 70s and 80s, and they say the life doesn't start until you turn 50. They say that's when you really turn it up. So that's awesome. But I wanted to kind of rewind back a little bit, if you don't mind, and talk a little bit about maybe your origin story. Try to start from the beginning, and oftentimes there are some signs of entrepreneurial pursuits or qualities that show up early on. It may or may not be the case, but you grew up in Europe, is that correct?
Yeah, I grew up in Denmark. Actually, this year marks the 30 years since I left Denmark. So I left at the tender age of 23, moved to London, England for some work opportunities, and then came to the US in 1996. So it's been good 28 years, 27, 28 years here in this country, and I moved around a little bit, and I landed in New Mexico. But yeah, I mean, to talk about an entrepreneurial spirit, I mean, I think, I grew up kind of in a blue collar town, and both my parents were working. My dad was very like industrious, right? He would go to work to pay the bills, and then he would go home and tinker with all these different things. So there was always something interesting going on in the garage or outside. So I always learned from that. So I always had different interests and wanted to do different things, but I never really was able to translate that into a business because I got into IT and I was like, hey, I love the IT world, and I did that, but there was always something missing, and it took me a long time to figure out what was missing. And I think it was that ability to control my own destiny, if you will, control my own income, control my own day, and so forth. So it took into my 40s before I really started acting on those impulses, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's great. Now, in terms of you're working in the corporate world, what did that look like? What type of field did you work in? And you mentioned a little bit about engineering, things like that, I think. So what was that background?
It was actually, I started out in telecommunication. I started out, and imagine, we rewind the clock 30 years, right? It was the digital revolution. Everybody was going from analog to digital. It was before the internet, or the internet was just starting. It was, a lot of the lines were still analog. So everything was digitalizing. So there was a huge amount of investment in telecommunication there in the 90s, right? All this, the internet was coming online, and web and all these things. So there was a huge amount of investment. So there was a good wave to ride. Unfortunately, I should have written this as an entrepreneur instead of as an employee, but hey, but so I was in business, I was in the telecommunication business, and I had a run of about 10 years where I was traveling all over the world. I've been to like 30 or 40 different countries because I was working in that space, in the telecommunication space. I've been to South America and East Asia and China and Japan. So I got to travel a lot of places because everybody's investing all this money. And then, if you remember, you're younger than me, Mark, but then in 2001, everything kind of fell apart, right? With the dot-com bust and stuff. And then, oh shit, now we need to find a new kind of a new avenue. And then I went into more full on IT after that, after the first, 10 years in the business.
Amazing. And so as you had that career in IT and you've had this lengthy time working in corporate America, like when did that switch kind of flip in terms of saying, hey, I need to get into real estate, or I need to get into some kind of entrepreneurial venture myself? And was it gradual? Did it happen overnight? Like what did that look like?
Very interesting. I think, and I reflect on this, right? There were years, many years where I was thinking, man, I got to do something different, right? Because, 9 to 5, stuck at work and not really having the freedom. So I thought a lot about it. I had some friends that were, doing side gigs or their own things. I could never find anything that really appealed to me because it just looked like another job, right? It's like, well, I can go and become a consultant. That's another job. I could do stuff. And I didn't want to start, like, I couldn't really even imagine starting a big company and growing. So it really took me a long time until I discovered real estate investing. And literally, I picked up how to invest in small multifamily by Brandon Turner or something like that. Bigger Pockets book in 2015 or something like that. I picked that book up and like the light bulb went on. I was like, oh my God, this is what I need to do, right? That was before syndications. Also, it was just, hey, I got to just buy some real estate. And I went to Albuquerque because that was the closest city, biggest city where I lived. So I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and bought my first fourplex. Me and my wife, we bought it together. First fourplex in 2016 for $115,000 or something.
Wow.
Like. You can imagine, not the best quality, but it got me into the game, right? It's like, oh, now I see what this is all about. And then, it then took a little while to turn that from a side investment to actually a full-on business.
That's amazing. So it sounds like you had this first investment and maybe it led to follow-on investments, but you still had the W-2 for at least a little bit of time there before you transitioned out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember me and my wife in like 2015, we were like, okay, it's going to take us 10 years to become financially free through real estate investing, right? Because I didn't know anything about syndications or raising money. I was like, okay, I can probably buy, if I keep my job, I can probably buy, we can probably buy one fourplex a year for the next 10 years. That would be about right. Very linear thinking, And I was like, yeah, I have a good job. I can continue to do this. It was like more of a retirement plan, if you will, And then it's, as you know, this hockey stick, right? So in the first year we bought, in the first 12 calendar months, I think we bought 2 fourplexes and then an 11 unit. And then we bought a small mobile home park with a partner. So it went very quickly into scaled very quickly, even just on owning our own account or small JVs. And so.
Wow. And did you self-managed all of those?
No, I had managed. No, just I had management because I was living far away. I lived like the whole mobile home park was 45 minutes away or something, but everything else was 4 hours away. And I think it kind of saved me, Mark, because you see a lot of like small owner operator, right? They buy a house, they buy a duplex or a 2-family, I guess you call it, and they try to self-manage, and they get so sucked into the day-to-day of it, they can never scale, they can never grow because like, oh my God, I got to paint this unit, and they're doing an hour, $20 an hour work, right? Instead of scaling. And I'm actually working with a client today, and he's painting. He owns like 20 some units. He's painting. I was like, dude, what are you doing? This is not just, you should not do this. You should be thinking about how to buy the next 20 units.
It's funny because yeah, you're kind of dovetailing into the personal training and things like that, the personal development. That's key though. I think as you scale your portfolio, as you scale your business, thinking more like a business owner and an investor as opposed to sole proprietor or mom and pop type of operator. So as you had that portfolio growing, when did it become the point where you say, okay, I'm now ready to transition into this full time? What was that like? Were you tossing and turning? A lot of people have real difficulty kind of embracing the uncertainty or overcoming the fear of going into something full time.
Yeah, and I will not underestimate that fear, right? I mean, having been an employee, a W-2 employee for 25 plus years, 27 plus years, that is very difficult. And what saved, so slowly things were growing, right? We got into syndications in 2019 and so forth. So I was like, oh, actually, this can probably work. Get some acquisition fees and get some stuff. This actually work, but I still didn't have the courage to step away. It was very scary. And then COVID happened. In 2020, COVID happened. And, the fear ramped up, right, as everybody else. But I think the best investment I did back then was I hired a mindset coach, a high performance coach. And walking through everything with him, I was like, wow, I'm just holding back because of this fear, right? This is not the life I want. So during 2020, we moved from Colorado back to New Mexico because my wife really wanted to do that. I went to part-time in my job. I started ramping up the real estate side and my consulting and coaching. And suddenly I saw, oh, this is fine. I can easily do this. So it was in 2021 before I left. So it took a little while, but it's 2021, right? So we were three and a half years into it now. And I'm making more, and that's a brag, but I'm making more money doing coaching and mentoring and real estate that I could even imagine. This is not like I'm some, amazing guy here. Just put your energy into something where you're rewarded. That's what I really found how that worked out for me.
That's an amazing lesson for anybody that's thinking about making that transition. When you free yourself up from focusing on multiple different things and kind of having to juggle multiple things and focus all of your energy on one point or on one venture, it's really amazing the progress that you can make. So now, going into that full time, were there any challenges when you did transition into full time doing real estate, and then you started doing the personal development as well early on?
I think the challenge is there's a couple of different things to think about, right? Do you have the discipline to just put the work in, right? I'm very good at that. I mean, I'm in here in my office from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or something like that. So I have that discipline. Other people may not, right? So the discipline to that, right? The discipline to I'm a bit of an introvert, right? The discipline to go out there and connect with people, connect with partners and investors and clients and broker, all these things, right? It doesn't come super natural to me. So I had to really force myself out of my comfort zone. I started a meetup. I would, go and go for coffees or lunches with different people that normally I was like, networking is a waste of my time. It's like, no, networking is the most important thing, right? So I really had to start thinking about connections with people. That didn't come that natural to me. And I think a lot of people, it doesn't. So you have to put that effort in. Right? So those are, I think, some of the things, right? And then, of course, real estate, as we know, goes through ups and downs, right? So every year is a little bit different, and we have some challenges and we have some good years and all these things. So that's, I think you also have to have the awareness or the confidence in yourself that you can ride out these different cycles in the real estate space.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you're somewhat diversified too with, you have the real estate business and really each of those properties is really kind of its own business. And then, you also have the self-development among maybe whatever else you're getting into. I find that when folks go all in, and I've now interviewed quite a few of my friends that have made that transition from corporate America into doing their business full time, really other opportunities open up to them, and they see opportunities maybe that they wouldn't have seen if they were focused on a W-2 full time.
No, you're absolutely right, because in W-2, right, you go in there and you do the job you paid for, unless you're the business development or CEO or something like that. You're just like, okay, I'm here to do this job. I'm going to do a good job, but I'm not going to go out and find new business because that's not my role here, right? When you're an entrepreneur, it's like, hey, we only eat if I make money. My dear wife, she works too, so we're not going to start. But I can only look in one direction for the success, right? And that's great. It's scary, but it's also great, right? Because if I want to really double down and work 80 hours, I can probably double my income if I wanted to. I don't. But so you have all that control, right? But then, as you said, Mark, you start seeing new opportunities, right? So I've worked, obviously being in the real estate space, I like systems, I like, leadership and development. So I've started seeing opportunities with property management companies that I know or that manage my property. I said, hey, would you like me to come in and do some consulting for you guys to kind of look through your systems and stuff? So I've had a few clients do that, right?
Oh, that's so cool.
See, yeah, stuff like that, where suddenly I was like, hey, I have enough experience in the corporate world and stuff that I can go in and do things like that. So things like that open up, and and then I have, so many, all these connections I've created. I had a guy call me today. He was like, hey, do you want to do a flip with me here in town? I was like, yeah, maybe, let's look at it, right? So these things, as you open up and share what you're capable of doing when you get in, suddenly these opportunities flow your way, I feel.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I have had the good fortune of having a number of different coaches, and I was always so amazed by how they would almost endlessly come across deals. Everybody had such a hard time for the last couple of years underwriting deals, finding deals that pencil. And these guys, for the last maybe 5, 10 years, kind of consistently found deal flow. And it's through their connections. And I'm starting to see this in a smaller manner bear fruit in my own world too. It's kind of like you said, you have to put yourself out there. You have to build these connections because at the end of the day, real estate is a relationship business.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, I literally don't look for deals myself. My partners do, and they bring them to me, and I do what I'm good at, right? Structuring them and raising money and all this stuff, right? So that, you know, I love that, right? Because there's so many people, they struggle for years and years and they never really break through because they don't spend enough time building relationships or, putting themselves out there. And as you said, it is the most important thing, I believe.
Yeah, now for somebody who may be starting off in real estate or really any entrepreneurial venture, they see somebody that they want to try to emulate. That can take a number of different forms. They could maybe coach with that person, pay for their time, pay for their expertise. But what would be a way that they could, be of value to somebody that they're looking to try to emulate when they're starting off? Maybe if you can use a real estate, as an example.
Yeah, and I think we should not emulate other people because we have unique skills, right? And I dislike the idea of somebody calling me and say, "Hey, Jens, how can I help you? What can I do for you?" Because then I am the one that's putting it on me. It's like, well, I don't know what you're good at. I don't know what your resources are. So now I have to figure out how you can help me. No, if you truly want to help me, spend some time getting to know me, getting to know what my business is, getting to know where I struggle, and say, "Oh, Jens, I've seen that your social media presence sucks. Can I help you with that?" So, oh, okay, now you're adding some value to me, right?
Absolutely.
So I really, you have to figure out how you can help that person, not just ask them what help they need. Because most people is going to say, I don't know, and then it doesn't happen, right? So I think that's the piece. And I think the other thing, right? The person sorry, what resources that person needs. So it could be resources such as they don't have very good deal flow, right? Or they don't have time to underwrite the deal. They don't, they're not boots on the ground, right? So things like that, if you can see, oh, I'm really good at connecting with brokers. Well, bring me a bunch of good deals, right? Or I'm really good at underwriting. Okay, cool. Underwrite these deals for me. Suddenly just look at what your skills are. Look at what the person that you want to help is lacking and then fill that gap. That would be my advice to anybody.
That's great. That's awesome advice. In terms of back to your story, I'm curious how you've already kind of mentioned how your skills from your career in IT have served you in terms of finding new opportunities and things like that. I'm curious how the real estate and the personal development kind of play off one another, because it's a theme that I've seen many, many times where folks who are in real estate and extremely successful at operating real estate are also super involved of trying to level themselves up in every aspect.
Yeah, I mean, you've had your own coaches and mentors, right, Mark? So you understand the value of it. I think as an employee, we're like, okay, I get my degree, I have a master's degree in computer system management. It's like, okay, I'm good. I'm educated. I just need to find a job. That's enough, right? And you can be very successful because you have good technical skills. You can be very successful. What you don't learn in college is the mindset around being an entrepreneur and taking risks and figuring your vision out, right? So when you get into real estate, most people look at it as a technical problem. Hey, find a deal, underwrite it, raise money, or whatever, right? They look at it as a very technical problem. And you can go to mentor, you can go to, different coaching programs and pay $25,000 how to learn how to underwrite a deal, right? And stuff like that. But if you cannot put yourself in the seat of, oh, I'm not looking around for other people to do it, I have to do it. It's on me. That's where people get stuck, right? They don't have the courage. They don't have the productivity. They don't have the influence. They don't even know what they want. So they just flail around and don't get any traction. Right? One week they may look at an Airbnb. Next week it's a self-storage. The following week it's an apartment building. They don't have a clear vision. They think it's all a technical problem. So they don't put the time into the mindset. And this has really been every client that I've worked with, typically they come to me for, oh, I want to learn real estate investing. Great. I'll teach you that in 2 months. And the next year, I'm going to teach you how to take the right action with the right mindset.
It's so important. Yeah, I've heard, various numbers, 80, 20, 90, 10 of, most of the game is mindset. And it's really the mechanics is, a very small minority of what you need to actually learn. It's putting yourself in the position of, okay, I can take down this deal. I am worthy of this deal. I can, figure it out. If I don't have the resources, somebody in my network does, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely right. And going out and raising money. I mean, you probably had calls with them. That's a weird thing to do, right? Because most people don't. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm asking for money. You're not asking anybody for money. You're giving them an opportunity, right? And start thinking about it that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see that we're coming up on almost 25 minutes here. This has been a really, really free-flowing and fun conversation. But I wanted to kind of leave it off with one final question for folks who may be struggling. They may be stuck. Maybe they may be new investors, or maybe they're seasoned investors that are just having a difficult time in today's market. Is there any kind of broad stroke advice? I know that's a difficult question. It's kind of open-ended that you would give to somebody that's really struggling right now to kind of take that next step and kind of level up their investments?
So I mean, like they're struggling to find their next deal or their first deal or something. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, it is. I mean, it is definitely a struggle. I think play the long game, right? I mean, just have patience. Don't force a deal right now if it's not the right time. But as you said, there are people, finding deals. I mean, we've done a few this year. So have patience, or get around the group that maybe seem to be having a little bit more traction and see, what is the value you can add to that group. Right? The first syndication I didn't do it by myself. It was part of a group, some people I had met, and I was able to start there. Right. So I think it's much easier to find a deal if you're part of an established team than trying to do it by yourself at this point in time.
Absolutely. Yeah. You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go with others. That's
That's right.
awesome. So, Jens, if folks want to learn more about you or want to say pursue personal coaching and self-development with you, how would they get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is just my email. I'm old school, right? It's Jens, Jens at open doors with an S capital.com. And they can also go on to my create a new website. So it's Jens Nielsen, JensNielsen.us. That's my coaching consulting website. You can schedule a free call, an intro call there. And, love to talk about people, real estate coaching, whatever. You can probably put that in the show notes or what do you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll put that in the description on this video for anybody that's interested. Jens, as always, it's a pleasure talking to you. Consider you a friend, and I've been watching what you're doing from afar for many years. So, keep it going. You inspire, the rest of us to to step our game up. So I really appreciate your time.
Of course, Mark. It was great to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thanks.